My castaway this week is an actor. The son of a long-distance lorry driver, he was born and brought up in Lancashire. He entered drama school at the age of 16, since when he's rarely been out of work. His versatility as a character actor, he's appeared at the Royal Court Theatre and with the Royal Shakespeare Company, as well as playing many film and television roles, has won him a distinguished professional reputation. He owes his national popularity, however, to two roles, the rough, tough Jack Regan in The Sweeney and the troubled but likeable Inspector Morse. The creator of these much-loved policemen avoids the stardom his admirers would thrust upon him. Professional satisfaction is what he seeks. Away from the cameras, he prefers a quiet life, laced, if possible, with plenty of classical music. He is John Thaw. In other words, John, there's rather more of Morse in you than Regan, is there?
Oh, most certainly, yes.
Do you have a preference for one of those characters over the other at all?
Well, at this stage in my life, most certainly Morse, because it's less energetic than doing steely Jack Regan, you know.
He leapt over a lot of walls and raced around a lot, old Regan, didn't he?
Yes, and when people ask me why don't I do it again, I say I'm too old. So Morse suits me fine.
Do people write in for Morse's music that's often played? I mean, the minute he finds a body, there's some music playing, isn't there?
I do get letters from people, if there's a nice, say, Beethoven quartet playing as they find the body, you know, in the cupboard or whatever. You invariably get letters saying, what was that music, you know, when Morse found the body? It was lovely, where can I get it, and what label's it on? So, yes, it's done that, which I think is marvellous, because people wouldn't rush out and say, can I have Beethoven's quartet in D or C or whatever? Just off the top of their head, they just...
What about your own love of classical music? Where and when did that begin?
That began when I was at RADA. I was a great friend and indeed later shared a flat with Tom Courtenay. And we were doing Goethe's Faust. Tom was playing Faust, I was playing Mephistopheles. We both of us used to rehearse at Tom's flat and got in a terrible state about it for some reason. And Tom said, why don't you listen to this? And he put on Sibelius' First Symphony. And he said, see if this can sort of do anything for you in terms of seeing that character, Mephistopheles, and, you know, where he's come from and where he's going. And I thought, what a lot of nonsense. Anyway, I sat down and Tom put this record on. And I was just transfixed. It all slotted into place.
But classical music had meant nothing to you before that?
No, I mean, I was of an age where you listen to family favourites and you might hear a bit of Enigma Variations or something, or Kathleen Ferrier, but no, it didn't mean anything until that point, and it was almost, it just changed my life that day, really.
It was downhill all the way after that.
Absolutely.
we better have the first record, I think. What's the first one you're taking to the island?
Well, it's not the Sibelius First Symphony. In fact, it's the Fifth Symphony, which I love. And I can tell you, between you and I conduct the last bit of it when I'm on my own, and I pretend I'm von Karajan or something.
Part of Sibelius Symphony No. 5 in E-flat major, played by the Berlin Philharmonic, conducted by Herbert von Karajan. and sometimes by John Thaw. Another fascinating thing about you, of course, apart from your love of music, is your age. You're 48, aren't you?
48, yeah.
Are people constantly surprised to discover that?
Yes, they are. They are. In fact, I must tell you, one of the crew on Morse recently said to my driver, he said, "Oh, John's not bad for his age, is he?" And he said, "Well, how old do you think he is?" He said, "Well, he's got to be 58, isn't he? 59.
It's worrying, that. I mean, has it always been the case?
I have always looked... I was born old, I think, really, or born looking old.
Have you gone prematurely grey as well, or did you?
I did. I started to go grey. In fact, if you looked at all the Sweeneys, you'd see the progression that happened during that Sweeney time. And just after the Sweeney, I went totally white. It's a hereditary thing, really. My dad went white when he was about 35.
It's the face as well, though, isn't it? I mean, it's got that lived-in look.
I guess it has.
I take it you're not vain, Mr. Thaw. Right?
No, not at all.
But you do these days get tagged with that, it's an awful phrase, isn't it? The thinking woman's crumpet, they've called you. Does it make you curl up then?
Yes, I don't know what it means, really, but yes, I've heard it. They might as well be talking about somebody else. I really don't know how it applies to me.
But, well, I think the truth is that women quite fancy Inspector Morse, probably more than Jack Regan, actually.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Because Morse is he's a very gentle, caring, sensitive man. I would think anybody would actually like him.
What does your wife, Sheila Hancock, think about you being a bit of a sex symbol?
She laughs. Just like the girls, my daughters laugh, you know. They just think, you know... In fact, sometimes they look at me washing up or something and say, there he is, the sex symbol, you know. No, they just ridicule me, basically.
Shall we have your second record?
Yes, my second record is Dame Eva Turner singing an aria from Turandot in Questa, Reggia. I first heard this particular aria before I was married to Sheila. I had a flat in Kensington, and periodically I used to rush about and clean it, you see, thinking it's about time, you know. So I remember one day I was scurrying around this flat with a hoover, etc. And I had the radio on, as I inevitably do. And suddenly above the row of the hoover, I could hear this noise. And I just sat transfixed by this piece, just the power of it and her wonderful voice and presence, you know. I love it.
Dame Eva Turner singing the aria In Questa, Reggia from Puccini's Turandot with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Sir John Barbarolli, and that was recorded at Covent Garden in 1937. Did you always want to be an actor, John, when you were young?
Yes, I always had shall we say, a gift for acting the goat, as they'd say up there.
You were a show-off, you mean?
Yes, I think I was, yes, an exhibitionist. I in fact, left school not planning to be an actor. I didn't really know what I was going to do. The nearest I got to it was wanting to be probably an electrical engineer, which seemed a good, safe job to do. But in fact, I went straight from school onto the fruit and vegetable market in Manchester.
Your mother left home, didn't she, when you were quite small?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
She never came back?
No, she didn't. Well, she came back once or twice and left again, so I don't count those times.
And you've never seen her since or heard from her? She's
dead now, bless her. But no, I saw her once in would be 1960, I guess, 61, and that's it.
You had a younger brother, didn't you? So there was you and him, and you were about 6 when she left. So who looked after you then, if your father was a long-distance lorry driver?
We lived in a council flat, and the people above us, I remember their names very well. The Bells, Frank Bell and Gladys Bell. They used to look after us. They'd come down and make sure we were in bed at the appointed hour. And Gladys would leave us a glass of milk and biscuits. And that she'd turn all the lights off. And, you know, it was nice for us insofar as we knew that Gladys and Frank were just above if there was any threat.
Did you ever go with your dad in the cab?
Yes, I did. Yeah, a few times. Went to London. I thought it was very exciting.
Big adventure.
Oh, absolutely. You know, at that age. But yes, I loved it.
But looking back on it all, I mean, obviously it wasn't a completely normal childhood, but I mean, do you think of it as being tough or deprived, or do you regret the childhood you had, or...?
No, I don't, because what we did have was a lot of love from my father and people like the Bells and my dad's family. So we felt wanted and loved, which I think is the most important thing. And I know that there were people with whole families, for want of a better word, who were far unhappier than I was.
But out of all of that, to tell them all that you wanted to become an actor was quite an ambitious thing to propose, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it stunned them a little. There was an image of actors being, for want of a better word, middle-class snobs, do you know?
Posh.
Posh, that's it. And people like us, people like us, didn't go into that world. And I thought, well, damn it, I've got a talent. I can have a go. I can only fail. And that was my dad's attitude, in fact, was if you blow it, then you just come back to Manchester and you carry on. You go and work back on the fruit market or something, but give it a go.
Is he still alive, your dad?
Yes, he is, thank God. Yeah,
I suppose he's got used to your success by now.
I think so. He accepts it, takes it for granted.
Let's have record number 3.
Record number 3 is Elgar, who I love dearly, and I would have to have Elgar with me on that island. And what better than Jacqueline Du Pre as well, a supreme musician, playing Elgar's Cello Concerto.
The opening of Elgar's Cello Concerto in E minor, Opus 85, played by Jacqueline Du Pre with the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Sir John Barbarolli. So you came to London, John, in 1958. Mm-hmm. What did you look like then?
I looked like what used to be called a teddy boy, I guess. And I very proudly wore 10-inch jeans. I remember 10 inches at the bottom, that is, and a draped jacket.
And the big shoes.
Yes, I had crepe sole shoes, all that business. But of course, to me, I mean, it sounds awful now, and I'm sure it was then, but to me, that was all I had. You know, that was my wardrobe. That's what I walked around in Manchester. But of course, everybody else was looking at me like I was a Martian, you can imagine.
What did you sound like?
I sounded like any other 16-year-old Mancunian, I guess. You know, very much like that, you know, and what are we doing next? Are we doing Othello next, or what?
Did someone say to you, you ought to get rid of that, or
Well, yes, it was understood that by going to RADA, you wanted to do something about your accent. So, yes, that was page one, really, was to get rid of that.
Did you find it easy? Did you have elocution lessons, or did you just flatten it out yourself?
No, at RADA, of course, you have speech therapy and voice lessons, the production of the voice, etc.
So what did they think of our John when he went back home?
Well, my brother, I remember, was his word, we've used it before earlier, was posh. I sounded posh, or why was I trying to sound posh? I tried to ignore those encouraging remarks and carried on.
But did it alienate you from them? I mean, did they feel...
No, I don't think it alienated them. I do think they were thinking, what is he turning into? I do think they were a bit worried. But, I think, there was still, of course, love and affection between the three of us. But, as I say, they was a little apprehensive.
Suspicious.
Yeah.
So eventually you set up this flat with Tom Courtney, which you mentioned, and in your spare room you raced model cars, yes?
We had a huge spare room in this very big flat, in fact. And I think it was Tom who'd obviously never had a train set or an electric car when he was a kid, so... He went out and bought himself a sort of Scalextric thing, I think the biggest he could find in London. And we laid it out all over this big spare room. But I think we only used it about twice, like kids, typical. We used it 3 times, got bored with these racing cars going round and round, and packed it away and left it. I think the dustman ended up with it.
But you obviously look back on those years as having been a good time.
Oh, yes, it was a good time.
And you carried off a few prizes, didn't you, in the end?
Yes, I was lucky. I got the Liverpool Playhouse Award from RADA, which was a year's contract at Liverpool Rep, and the Vanbrugh Award. But
the Playhouse Award, the Liverpool Playhouse Award, was presumably very important because, as you say, that guarantees you work.
Yes, I didn't have to worry about getting an agent or getting a job or auditioning or sending off letters and photographs and things. I just went literally from RADA on the Friday to Liverpool on the Monday.
And you've really been out of work since?
Thank God, no.
Shall we pause there for some more music? What's it to be?
The next one, again, relates to that time. It's Schubert's Quintet in C. Tommy Courtney got me onto Schubert, and as it were, I took over from him. But this I love, and it's got Pablo Casals playing cello, who I love dearly. I love the cello. And I don't think there's possibly not a nicer piece of music I know.
Part of the Adagio from Schubert's Quintet in C major, opus 163, played by Isaac Stern, Alexander Schneider, Milton K. Timms, Pablo Casals and Paul Tortelier. I have a suspicion, John, that your music will make you weep on this island as much as bring you comfort, will it?
More than likely, I would think. I think most of these things have that in common, that if they catch me at the right time, there's buckets of tears. Yeah.
How will you manage on your own, do you think? You're any good at it?
It doesn't worry me at all. I quite like solitude. So that element wouldn't worry me. I'm a little worried. I'm not very much a sort of do-it-yourself man. I can change an electric plug or something, but that's about it. So I don't know how I'd cope, basically.
Can you cook?
Yes, that I can do. That I can do. But very simple cooking, not only a sort of cordon bleu, but I can survive food-wise, yeah.
Are you a Sunday lunch cook for the family?
Yes, exactly. That's just what I do.
A lot of women you live with.
Yes, I'm surrounded by them. What can I say? I have 3 daughters, and Sheila Hancock, my wife.
I think a lot of people will know that you and Sheila parted for a few months a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was obviously a separation which worked. I mean, it refreshed the marriage.
Absolutely. It wasn't the sort of separation where one said, well, we must separate and then we'll come back and it will be even better, as it were. It wasn't done in a sort of cold way in that sense. Sheila had been ill and just wanted to be alone, just wanted to, or needed to be on her own. Now, it was a question of when we get back together. It wasn't a question of if we get back together. It was just Sheila needed that space and that time to adjust, to being told that she had cancer.
Did you blame yourself at all in all of that? Did you feel that you were less than supportive in that situation?
Well, don't forget, doing Morse, where I work, and I was doing Morse at that time, where you work long hours. They're not regular hours by any means, and then one has to do a certain amount of work when you get home for the next day. Of course, I wasn't as supportive as I would have liked to have been, but that was the situation at that time. Therefore, for Sheila, the only answer was to be on her own and sort it out herself,
And she's done that.
Absolutely, thank God. Yes.
And you're back together again, as we say. And how have you changed then? Have you tried to alter your work pattern so that you couldn't arrive at that point again?
I don't work so hard. I don't work to the exclusion of everything else, not least Sheila.
Which you did before?
Possibly, sometimes. Yes, I did. And conversely, Sheila now accepts that I am in a job that does require possibly more commitment than going into the West End to do a 3-hour show every night.
But you've learned to say no, basically, when the phone rings and people offer you work.
Prior to this series of Morse, I didn't work for, 5 months. I did nothing quite deliberately.
And you've given up drinking as well, haven't you?
That's right.
How's that changed you?
Not a lot, really. I don't know. I honestly don't think it has, but anyway, I don't.
Was it hard to give it up?
No, I found it was just like giving up sugar, really.
I think we ought to have your next record there.
Well, we've just been talking about her, and I'd like to take to my island my dear wife, Sheila Hancock, doing Little Girls from Annie, which was a musical a few years back, which I loved. I loved the musical. I used to be in tears every time I saw it. And I thought Sheila was brilliant. And, of course, she's singing Little Girls, which... she's not singing about her girls, but I just thought it was quite sweet.
Little girls, everywhere I turn I can see them. Little girls, night and day I eat, sleep and breathe them. I'm an ordinary woman with feelings. I'd like a man to nibble on my ear, but I'll admit no man has bit. So how come I'm the mother of the year? Little cheeks, little teeth, everything around me is a little. If I ring little necks, surely I will get an acquittal. Some women are dripping with diamonds, some women are dripping with pearls. Lucky me, look at what I'm dripping with, little girls.
Sheila Hancock singing Little Girls from Annie. Did she know you were going to take that record to the island?
No, she didn't. She thought I was going to take something totally different.
So let's talk about the Sweeney. I mean, it was very realistic, wasn't it? Did you do a lot of research for it?
I made a point of meeting a lot of policemen, obviously, from the flying squad and other areas, and went to Scotland Yard and made a couple of very good friends, policemen, friends, I still have.
So the police liked it, did they, as a series?
Yes, absolutely. On the whole, yeah, they did. I think it's true to say that the majority of them thought it was the most realistic they'd been to date.
Because it was quite violent, wasn't it?
Well, it was, but, you know, as I said at the time, if we'd have been doing a series about traffic wardens, then I would say it was full of gratuitous violence. But, I mean, by the nature of the job, the flying squad meet, sadly, a lot of violence in their job, you know.
And use a lot of violence?
In self-defense. Milad.
It's the programme, isn't it, that people always mention when they talk about violence on television. They always say, look at the Sweeney, when they're arguing against violence on television.
Yes, they do. That's one of the programmes. I must say, there are certain programmes now on television that I would say are more violent in the sense that they glamorise violence, which I really believe the Sweeney never did. It was made by people who'd come from documentary, and the way they shot it was a sort of in a realistic way. We tried to be real and to show that it wasn't actually a very pleasant thing, and people did get hurt and bruised and cut. Whereas some of these American things you see, it seems to me that they glamorise the fact that you can just shoot somebody in the street or, you know, get behind a car wheel and run a few people down, and that's fine because they're villains. We never had any of that stuff.
So in the end, it taught you a kind of sympathy for the police, did it, rather than any kind of distaste for their work?
Oh, absolutely. I realised what a horrible job it was. I mean, it's a job I could never do and would never do in a million years. You know, I have nothing but respect for some of those guys.
Going back to the business of people confusing the actor and the role, I mean, do you find still, or did you find then that people were worried that you were Jack Regan? They kind of made sure they didn't cross you when they saw you up the corner in a pub or something?
I think the truth of the matter is they weren't quite sure how much was acting and how much was me, John Thaw. So discretion took the better form of valour, and they left me alone.
But the Morse factor is now taking over, so that you're approachable now, are you?
Yes, I guess that people are. They feel freer to come up and talk to me.
The only problem is they don't know his name, do they? We always call him Morse. Has he got a Christian name?
He has got one. I'm not allowed to divulge it, and it will never be divulged. But he does have one. I have it from the horse's mouth, Colin Dexter.
Why can it not be divulged?
Because Morse is embarrassed by it, and I think that's good enough for me in the terms of the series that he won't divulge it because he's embarrassed.
It's a kind of Archibald, is it? Or?
Yes, it's close.
Shall we have record number 6?
Talking about Morse, I recently went to see The Magic Flute at the English National Opera, and I'd never seen it before. The reason I went was because we were doing an episode of Morse which revolved around the performance of the Magic Flute, or a rendition of the Magic Flute. And so I thought I'd better see it. And so I went, and I was totally knocked out by it. It was a lovely evening.
Part of the overture to Mozart's Magic Flute, played by the Philharmonia Orchestra, conducted by Otto Klemperer. We haven't, John Thaw, mentioned Home to Roost yet, your sitcom. That must have come as quite a relief after the Sweeney.
Yes, it was, and a pleasure to do.
But were you surprised to be asked to do comedy?
Not really. People in the business think of me as a comedy actor, if they need it, you know.
Mm. Well, which do you find more difficult, the theatre or television? Can you compare them?
comedy on television, I think, is the hardest thing to do, in my experience, because it's a sort of awful halfway house between theatre and television. You have a live audience, and if you don't get a laugh from that audience there, it can throw you, and you think, my God, what have I done wrong? And yet you suddenly wake up to the fact, my God, there's a camera on me, I'm in close-up, you know, I better keep going. So for me, and I know for a lot of mates of mine who do comedy, it is a very stressful situation. I think it's possibly the most stressful situation an actor can be in fact.
So you're not one of those actors who considers television work a second class to the purity of treading the boards?
Oh, my God, no. Some of the finest, in my opinion, the best actors in the business are top television and comedy actors, in inverted commas. It's a very demanding medium.
The other difference, of course, is that the theatre may be able to give you a reputation, but television makes you a star, doesn't it?
Yes, I guess it does. It certainly does. But it's a question of what your priorities are as an actor. Do you want to entertain as many people as possible, or do you want to play to 600 people a night on Shaftesbury Avenue?
But if you end up and make the choice of playing to a great many people, that's fine. But as I say, stardom comes with it, and that's something that you really don't want, isn't it?
It's something, to be honest, I could do without. I could live very happily without it, without, in inverted commas again, attention. But it is sadly part of the job, sadly for me, part of the job. It's something that goes with it, and you're not allowed to just entertain people for an hour or two. You have to do other things.
The occupational hazard of it all. Record number 7.
Number 7 is Elizabeth Schwarzkopf. Sheila and I have a joke that if I ever fell in love with another lady, it would have to be Elizabeth Schwarzkopf. She's the only threat to Sheila that I know. And she's singing one of Strauss's 4 last songs.
Elizabeth Schwarzkopf singing one of Richard Strauss's 4 last songs, Beim, Schlafengehen, with the Berlin Radio Symphony Orchestra conducted by George Sell. So, John, there are more Morses in the making at the moment.
That's right. Yeah.
But what's the longer-term professional ambition? Do you have one?
No, I never have. I'm one of those people, I've never set goals for myself.
But you haven't played any of the great classical roles. It's a fairly unclassical career, really, isn't it?
I do have a little regret
But
about
they're
that.
still all there for you to play. I mean, surely there must be one that you'd...
Well, I would like to play Lear one day, I would say that. And Iago, I'd like to play that. Hopefully I would do it with Manchester, the Royal Exchange, possibly in 1992.
Sounds like quite a firm plan, that.
Well, if everything works out, it is something that I would like to do, let's put it that way.
Right. But no more policemen.
Well, I've got Morse to do this year, and in fact I've agreed to do another series next year.
But as you pace about the desert island, what will you look back on as your best piece of professional work?
I think, if I'm totally objective about it, it would have to be Morse, because it's a quality product, for want of a better word, and I act it pretty well, and we get good scripts, and yet it is also very popular with the public. So all those things coming together, I would say would give me the most pleasure.
Last record.
The last record is the St. Matthew Passion of Bach, and it's an aria, Erbarme dich, mein Gott. I just think it's a great piece of music.
And it makes you cry.
It does, indeed.
The aria Erbarme dich, mein Gott from Bach's St. Matthew Passion, sung by Margot Höfgen with the Stuttgart Chamber Orchestra conducted by Karl Münchinger. So one of the 8, John, you have to choose. Which is it?
It would have to be the Matthew Passion.
I thought the Schubert was the most beautiful piece of music ever written.
Yes, but it is one of them. But no, the Matthew Passion has, it's got all sorts of wonderful colour and richness, and the different voices, of course.
And a book to add to the Bible and Shakespeare.
The very first book I ever remember hearing being read to on radio was The Wind in the Willows. And I've read it to my daughters over the years. I've even picked it up and looked at it myself when I haven't had to read it. And I think it's a charming, lovely book, and I would love to take that with me.
And a luxury.
About a year ago, Sheila and I suddenly started wondering why we used to have terrible stiff necks at the end of a Sunday, sitting about reading Sunday papers, etc. And we discovered, basically, we'd had these horrible chairs for at least 10 years, possibly the most uncomfortable chairs in London. So we went out the next day and ordered 6, would you believe, armchairs. And what I would like to take is a very, very soft, comfortable armchair.
John Thaw, thank you very much indeed for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
It's my pleasure, thank you.